Hello, everyone.
Hello, good evening. How is everybody doing?
Good
How
to
you
see
doing,
everybody.
Chris?
Oh, we're doing good.
You had quite a day today.
I had quite a day today. Yes, we were pulling air seeders today, and the inevitable happened. A hydraulic connection point on the wing of the air seeder I was pulling busted clearly off, and the wing of the air seeder folded out onto the highway. So thankfully, it happened at the right time, and it was something that was completely unpreventable, and we had help right away. And if anybody's seen Big Red sitting on the side of the highway in Swift Current, Saskatchewan today, that's what we happened. We got her back to the yard safe, and yeah, an early end to a long productive day that I thought I had. So
Yes, wow. Pretty exciting life you're leading for somebody on house arrest.
as long as I have a schedule printed, I am good to go. And I feel bad for my probation officer emailing in my last, requests and changes in my deadlines, and it's been quite the last couple of weeks. But we're getting there. It's just a work.
Yeah,
But I could be
yeah, we
sitting
are.
we could be sitting at home. I feel, it is what it is. So how are you making out
Right.
under your house arrest? Your conditions
I'm
are a lot
doing
worse.
good. Yeah, well, I had my third meeting with my probation officer today, which is still really funny to still say that. Anyways, I quite like her. She's nice enough. I think she's just trying to do her job. It's a bit. My situation seems to be a little bit different than yours, which is very odd. I think we talked a little bit about this before, that you are allowed leisure time, and I'm only allowed necessities of lifetime, and which is fine. Maybe your probation officer likes you better than mine.
Well,
Hey
I kind of
guys.
messed
Oh,
her
we
up.
got some. Sorry, we got Ottawa. Alberta Vincent. Hi, Ottawa. He's coming from Ottawa, Canada. We just had some more from Ontario.
I'll try and answer some questions as we go here. But Dean, it was actually an old case drill today, and we kind of feared when we left the yard today that it was going to be a trouble trying to make it. It's an old one. So, I see Tamara's frozen. I'm hoping you can hear me there, guys. Let me know in the comment section. Good evening, everyone. Tabor, Alberta, Saskatoon. Look at that. British Columbia's in the house. Ontario, nice. So we have just about 500 people all in here. We can hear you. Tamara's having a little bit of technical issues, so she just bounced out. Looks like it's a Chris show for a minute. You'll have to bear with me and my chatting here. I see some good people in here. Tamara will be back shortly.
Okay.
There she is.
Wouldn't you know it? The week after we started doing this show, I started having problems with my computer. So hopefully it's going to hang on for a little while. Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. But you could keep going, so that's good.
Well, we got lots to talk about, I guess. It's better if we talk together.
Yes, that's right. Anyways, where was I? Yes, thank you all for joining us tonight on House Arrest. We're going to have Tom and Danny here later on. We're going to be basically discussing our origin stories, why we got involved, and how we all met. Hi, Jerry. Somebody from Innisfail, Quebec. Oh, I had my second French lesson today.
Oh, how's that going?
Yeah, it's going awesome. I have a really great instructor. I'm really, really pumped about it. So, couple things we wanted to just start off with here. I just wanted to say a big thank you to our good friend Ruby, who has taken on the big job of moderating our chats. I know there were some issues last week. Also, just want you guys to know that we have adopted a zero tolerance policy here. I'm all about free speech, but I'm also, if you want to be rude and obnoxious and aggressive, then you can speak freely somewhere else. So we're going to have a zero tolerance policy. That's one thing we've always tried to do, is to maintain respect and our integrity at all times. And we're going to ask the same of you. So she's got a big job. We definitely welcome lots of dialogue, but we just want to do it in respectfully. There she is. Hey, Ruby. Thanks so much.
Good to see you, Ruby. Yeah, there's one thing to have open dialogue, and then there's another point to be rude and inconsiderate. And this show is not for drama or how should we word it better? A shit show. We don't want a shit show. We want something that everybody can join in and watch and enjoy. So
That show will be after house arrest is over. We'll start that show after this is over.
Is that the 6 months of
So
probation or curfew afterwards? I think so, right?
yeah, that's right, exactly. So, anyways, a big thank you to Ruby for helping us out, and for all of you for obviously pointing out some things that needed to be fixed. We are still a work in progress here, as you can tell, but we're getting there slowly but surely. And yeah, so basically, Chris, I just wanted to take a few minutes and just talk about how our appointments are going. Again, like I was saying, I met with my probation officer today, and we finished up our interview where basically what she's doing is a psychological assessment to see if I am going to be a high risk or risk to society. We drew the informal, unofficial conclusion today that I am not. So, but you probably had something very similar, a very intense interview where they asked about your parents and your upbringing and your drug use and any mental illnesses that you may have been diagnosed with at some point or another.
That was on Monday. Yeah, I had a 1-hour meeting with her in Swift Current. I'm allowed to drive from the farm to Swift Current. And yeah, that was just a questionnaire that she had to fill out. And mine seems like she's a nice lady. She doesn't seem like she's a supporter, but she doesn't seem like she's a hater. And she's just doing her job and but listening. And we had a really, kind of a good conversation. It was all about peers, what my peers and how they influence me, and if they still influence me now. And for all accounts, I act on my own. I don't act because somebody else tells me to do something. I act on my own. My feelings are my own. When you look at Twitter there and you see the leftist trolls, and it's always in their bio that their feelings are their own and no one else's. I'm kind of the same. So we had a good conversation, and we had a good dialogue. And I hope we've got quite a few more meetings to go through, as you probably do too, and we will continue to keep that dialogue open. And
Have you organized your community service yet?
I'm working on that right now. My community service will probably be held in my village of Stewart Valley, Saskatchewan. The councillors all got together at their monthly meeting here a week or so ago, and we're trying to think of things that Chris Barber could do around the community. And community is really important to me. So 100 hours, it'll go really fast. There's lots to do around there, and of course, I'm part of the volunteer fire department in Stewart Valley too. So we'll be, there's lots of stuff to do, like sweeping out the fire hall, getting the fire trucks ready. Every time we have a fire, somebody's got to go through the equipment and make sure that it's up to date and ready to go. All the trucks are filled up, the pumps are filled up. So yeah, there's lots.
Nice. Well, that's good.
How about you?
Will be. Yeah, I had a meeting with my church yesterday, so I've got every Tuesday I'll be going, and I should be able to get about 5 hours in. I'm going to do things like help with maintenance and filing. They're looking for a bass player and a drummer on the worship team, so if I could figure out how to play bass, I'll join the worship team. I'm really excited.
Nice.
Well, you were just at that church. We just did the JCCF event before our sentencing at that church, and it's such a great church. I love the people there. We have a fantastic pastor. So, and then tomorrow morning at 10:30, I've got an appointment with a local charitable organization in town. I don't want to mention it just in case people want to call and badger them, but so hopefully I can get some hours in there. And yeah, so it's, I feel like I've had an incredibly busy couple of weeks for someone that's just supposed to be sitting around at home doing nothing, So,
yeah.
But,
I have found myself, though, vegging out on the couch a little bit more than I normally do. And last night, I just, for some reason, was working in the shop maintenance and trailers, and I didn't feel good. I had a wave of nausea hit me. Maybe I ate something that I shouldn't have ate. And I watched movies on the couch all evening with my wife. So it was a good.
Nice. Yeah, we definitely can do chill time.
Yep.
I mean, the funny thing is when, unless Dwayne and I are traveling and doing something, like going to play a concert or going to an event or something. I mean, we really don't do much anyways. I mean, I hardly ever leave the house anyhow. So, I mean, this is not really, we are taking an application to the judge. Actually, I talked to Lawrence today to try and get permission from the judge so that I can pick up and drop off my grandsons from school. So that was a new thing today. So hopefully that'll be granted, but he thought we could maybe just take that to the Crown and get the Crown prosecutor to grant that request. So hopefully, I can't see that being an issue, but it'd be my daughter is a registered nurse, so she works shift work, and that was just one of the things that I did often was to help her get the kids to school. So that one thing would be nice.
I think they should be able to. I mean, I have a provision in mind too. Our land locations are all listed on my order, so mom and dad, they need help, and I'm able to run up and give them a hand when they need it, and especially when winter coming and I get to clean their yard with snow. That's usually my deal with them is we look after our parents and they look after us. I don't usually make it out to the horses out there to feed them their morning bucket of oats without my father beating me out there. So feed the liberals.
Well, we made it through week 3 anyways. Week 3 of house arrest. So far, so good. Only 53 more to go. I brought some things up. Oh my gosh, my computer is just losing its mind. Okay.
What do we have? We're on episode 3 right now, and we will be able to do episode 24.
3. Yeah. We've got some. Yeah, it has been good. I just pulled some of these letters out that I received. Actually, I think this one I got when I was in jail. And it was from a little girl named Alanis, who was 8, and her brother Xavier, who was age 4. And it's so cute. It says, "Thank you for fighting for everyone's freedom. God will be by your side, and God will protect you from the enemy. With God, everything is possible. Stay strong. We are praying for you every step of the journey. Love, Alanis and Xavier." I got boxes and boxes of these. We have to we'll have to get them out. And this was another one I got. This was February the 15th. So the day after the invocation of the Emergencies Act. And I got this is from one family. So Vincent drew this. Look at that picture of that semi-truck. Can you see that? That's pretty good. Yes. Dear truckers, thank you for fighting for my freedom. God bless truckers. God bless Canada. Love, Vincent. Looks like he is 8 years old. And then his brother John sent another one that says, "Thank you, truckers. God bless you. Love, John, age 6."
Nice.
And this is all from the same family, obviously. Dear truckers, thank you, truckers. God bless you, truckers. God bless Canada. Canada strong and free. I pray for you. I love you. We support you, truckers. And this is from Joseph, who's age 10, and he drew a picture of Justin Trudeau. Can you see that? Justin Trudeau.
Oh, nice.
And this last one is also from Joseph, and it says, "Thank you, truckers. We pray for you every day. Thank you for our freedom. God bless you, truckers, and God bless Canada." And then he do a picture of the policeman looking at you, truckers. It says, "Policeman looking at you, truckers." He's a pretty good little artist. And then this is from their mother. "All you dear courageous truckers and support teams, may God bless you all 1,000 times over. You have made me proud of our country, proud to be a Canadian. It is so heartening after years of feeling surrounded by people who have been tricked into surrendering their freedoms, people who are indifferent or even angry when others exercise their freedom. It is so heartening to hear about the unified, peaceful, joyful, loving way that you all are standing up for the freedom of all Canadians. I wish that my parents and 9 siblings and I were there with you. Your witness is changing hearts, and that's the best, the only way to combat evil. I know that God and Our Lady are standing at the head of the convoy with you, and that they are blessing you for your sacrifice and courage. God make our land glorious and free. Love and prayers for you all." Isn't that beautiful?
How do people find our addresses? I know when you got home from being incarcerated for 20 some days, you had a stack, and I've got a basement that is full of things that people have sent me. But it's amazing to see the resources that people will search into to get addresses and mail, things to support. Like, this basement is full. I wish people could see the amount of stuff that I have no room left on the walls.
I know I've got boxes and boxes and boxes. And there's so many great stories in there. So I want to try and pick some out. This was one that we got actually on the way. You can tell because it sat in the big red there. I don't know if you remember this one,
Oh yeah.
but I think we got that in Ontario somewhere. Thank you, truckers. And this sat in big red for look at this. Look at the.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, it was just amazing.
I was
So this
cleaning
is
out the
the
kitchen.
children.
I think I was cleaning the kitchen up here a year or two ago, something like that, and I pulled one of the cabinets out to clean them underneath it, and in there was two big 2 foot by 2 foot murals from a couple kids, and I believe it was Quebec that did some drawing on it. I think they're just down there on the computer here, but I could have to see if I could find them. But it was a surprising thing to find when you didn't expect it.
Yeah. Well, there's so many I know that I get that I just read them and I'm just burst into tears because the stories are so beautiful and people are so grateful and it really meant a lot to them. So
it's a stack of stuff here. A stack of stuff here.
Oh, my childhood matters. Thank you, truckers. Hammer down. Aw.
There's a stage of 3 of them here.
Oh, wow.
Convoy.
My body, my choice. Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And one more.
I'm a part of the fringe minority. I love it.
That was a surprise to find that.
No kidding. The children. Well, Danny got a hold of me. He's running a little bit late. Getting home from work. I see Tom is backstage. Tom is actually joining us from DC tonight, which is kind of cool. He flew down there yesterday, so we'll do a catch up with him. And obviously, when Danny gets here, we'll get started on the origin stories. Hey, Tom.
Hey, I hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
Yes, we can.
Oh, yeah. Good. Yeah, I'm in my hotel room in DC. I'm about 1.4 kilometers from the White House. And, wow. Like we've been talking about, I was going to try and broadcast from the White House. It wasn't going to work. Like I went there yesterday, took a bunch of pictures, and I went to the Vietnam War Memorial. I went to the Lincoln Memorial. Just incredible sites here. And, I highly recommend if you have a chance to go to Washington, D.C., go to Washington, D.C. It's so rich in its history. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I've been kind of talking all day. I'm at a conference here in D.C., but I didn't want to miss the episode. So this is a good thing. And I wanted to be in front of the White House, but this is going to have to do in the hotel. So
that's totally fine. Yeah. It would have been a great backdrop, though.
Oh, for sure.
President Trump was handing out trick or treat things to the kids today on the White House grounds, so that would have been pretty cool. One of these days, we get to meet. That'll be.
That's right.
Yeah. I gotta say though, it's an incredible. If you're into history, then you appreciate history. It's so rich in history. The city, they really, really strongly capture it. But I will say, Chris, I could be wrong, but I think you went to Berlin. You did a trip to Europe with Harold Jonker, right?
Yep, we went over to Amsterdam.
Right, and Tamara, you've been to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have to say, Washington actually reminds me a little bit of Berlin in the fact that it's so rich with its country's history. You go to Canada, you go to Ottawa, it's a capital city. Okay, I hate to say this, but whoop-de-doo. It doesn't have that deep, rich history in the same way that some of the other capital cities of other countries have, right? Canada's still a younger country in relative terms because, we were still British for a long time. But the Americas, when you come to DC, you feel that history. Mm-hmm. And they celebrate it, with their monuments. And I mean, these things are incredible. To look at the Lincoln Memorial yesterday was a huge bucket list type of a treat for me to be able to see that. To go to the Vietnam War. Like I'm 52. My war growing up was all my heroes on TV that, fought in the Vietnam War type of thing, right? My war in my
Mhm.
lifetime was the Afghanistan War. But this to get to actually be able to see the Vietnam War Memorial was an incredible experience. It's just that I was a little bit rushed. I was trying to get everything in a very short amount of time, and I didn't really get to embrace the experience like I was hoping to. And I just don't have enough time on this trip. But I'm thinking about coming back here in the spring. We might come together and do this trip. Maybe I don't know, but it's an incredible experience to be here in a place that has such amazing history, both good and bad. I might add. The
Mhm.
history here is not it's not all great, but I don't see them knocking down statues and covering it in pink paint and ripping things down, right, in the name of something stupid. But I do appreciate the fact that I'm actually here. It's quite impressive.
was one of the
How do
things I
you find
realized.
the sense of freedom? I know that Keith and his wife were just down in Tulsa a couple weeks ago, and he was remarking on just how like different everything is down there now, and how the obviousness of the difference even in our freedoms or experiencing
Yeah,
freedom it has changed.
yeah, that's been a little bit harder to gauge here in this city, right? Like, never forget, obviously, when you're in a federal government city, there's a little bit of a bubble around that mentality,
Right.
right? So I don't think it's a city full of your average ordinary Americans. These are people fully embedded and ingrained and engrossed in the politics of the federal government. So it's like
Right.
Ottawa. I mean, the three of us have spent an enormous amount of time together in Ottawa, both at the convoy and during the commission. So you feel that sort of bubble around the capital of Canada, and I do feel that a little bit here in Ottawa as well. And at this conference that I'm at, it's actually we're talking about blockchain and government policy and all that kind of stuff and how it's going to impact everybody's life. And it's fascinating to me because a lot of people I met here, Americans, some heard of the Freedom Convoy, and other people looked at me like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
I get that. I get that because Americans have their hands full with all of the issues that are impacting America, right? Like there's 350 million Americans. There's about, let's say, 39 million Canadians and a whole bunch of people that have shown up in the last 5 years. So, bringing the number to somewhere around 42 million mouths to feed in Canada, I mean, I think that's probably about the same as the state of probably California, right? So it's different, and they've got very different problems here because I asked them, we talk about it, and they're fully engrossed in their own issues.
Mhm.
But I will say I'm happy to hear a lot of people I met have a lot of experience in Canada. Like they're Americans. Like I met this great politician in Utah, really, really lovely lady. She spent 4 years living in Edmonton. One of her children was born in Edmonton, but she's here back in America, and she's an elected official. And so there is this connection, between Canada, U.S.
Mhm.
But Canada's Canada. We watch everybody else. I think Canadians are very worldly. I think they pay attention to what's going on outside of the borders. America is the greatest show on earth. They don't really have a need to look outwards. I always think of America like a fishbowl. Like the fish has this beautiful aquarium, let's say, and it's swimming around. It's like life is great. Why do I care what's on the other side of the glass?
Mhm.
The rest of the world is looking at how interesting the fish is, right? So that's kind of how I compare it. But I met some really amazing people, just genuine, happy American citizens that are interested in the direction that their governments are going in, just in the same way that we are.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit discouraging or disheartening when you see these sporting events and last year we saw people booing when the national anthem came on because of the elbows up crowd. And to me, I found that particularly frustrating because of the relationship between the Canadian military and the American military, and how closely they've worked together during both wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And to see us get where Canadians would actually boo the American national anthem, I felt was so distasteful, so
Oh, it's
disrespectful,
terrible.
and just
Terrible.
terrible. And
It
and
just
so
shows the disconnect, though, right? Like the disconnect,
it
and that
does.
disconnect has been brought to you care of our government, and
Yeah.
the misinformation and the managing and the conditioning of society that we've.
Mhm.
I watch CBC and CTV every morning on the TV here when I'm doing my office stuff. I see it, but I'm awake to what they're doing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that I know, good farmhand neighbors of mine, that are their TV plays on the news all day long. And the first thing we'll get into a confrontation about will be Donald Trump, because CBC told.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sad
Yeah.
because people can't think for themselves anymore.
Yeah, but you spend a lot of time in the States, right, Chris? Because of, all the trucking that you do, the delivery, like the relationships you must have built over the years. So you're seeing it from a much more unique perspective than I am. And maybe Tamara, I don't know, but you spend a lot of time in the United States.
I was 21, and I started when you're legal age to drive a commercial vehicle, you have to be 21. So I drove in Canada from 18 to 21, and then as soon as my birthday hit, I was thankful enough that I had a couple old school truckers, old Delbert Zacharias and Stan Mulnix. Those two old boys took me under their wing and taught me what I needed to know. Although those were the back in the days of paper logbooks, and you'd do 15 hours on the first day when the logbook said you could do 10. And we did some serious trucking back today. That's what I said when I'm talking with Jonathan, when we're doing trucking stories, I'm like, you got nothing, buddy. We've been there, done that. But I see a huge, one thing that I've always kind of questioned was when trucking in the US was that American flag is always standing proud. The patriotism in the US was always there. And I always felt like Canada kind of lacked that compared to the US when it come to how high they held their flag and their country. And it's not that Canadians aren't patriotic. I mean, we're all just complacent and quiet, want to get along, but we never did it to the extent of what I saw in the US until when we went on that 4,000-kilometer journey across this country to Ottawa. And then I seen it. And then it was full front and center.
Yeah. And you know what? Let's not forget that after the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa, the Americans had their own convoy that went to Washington, D.C.
The People's Convoy.
And the People's Convoy, right? And I think Maureen Steele, I like to think that Maureen Steele was kind of like the Tamara Leach of America on that convoy. I could be wrong on that, but I've spoken to her. I know, Tamara, you've spoken to her.
Yeah.
That was back in the days when you and I couldn't talk to each other, so we wouldn't, right? So, but I think the Americans, they don't do anything halfway, and for the first time, Canadians during the Freedom Convoy sort of led the world in what was possible. This is a Canadian thing that inspired even the Americans, and like I take some pride in that we took a leadership role across the entire world. That when you can say that something you've done in your country actually inspires America or Americans, I think that's a pretty big deal. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the Americans. It's just that the country of America has a major leadership role across the planet.
Yes.
And so when you can sort of set a high standard, a high benchmark for the Americans to achieve, that's pretty amazing, and like I was trying to follow the People's Convoy. I was a supporter from afar, not that it made any difference, but it just kind of demonstrates how closely aligned the average American citizen is with the average Canadian citizen. And I think that we're cousins. It's an important.
Well, and I think one of the shocking things about the Freedom Convoy and the way that the reaction from around the world is we're typically not leaders and stuff like that. I mean, if the United States gets Big Brother, we get Big Brother Canada. If the United States gets, American Idol, we get Canadian Idol. So I mean, movements like this typically don't come out of Canada. And I always very affectionately call it the most peaceful and polite protest of all time, because, that's typically who we are, or what we used to be known for anyway. I don't know if we're known for being too polite and nice anymore, but back then we still were anyways. But yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think I alluded to that last week. Like, I grew up watching this patriotism in the States and how much pride they had in their flag and in their institutions. And I was a little envious. I mean, I felt like I was proud to be Canadian, but I didn't see that kind of passion from Canadians about their flag or about their country. So, but I mean, and it wasn't just the United States, it was the whole world. I'll never forget Tom Quiggin running down with a cell phone to show me pictures of a convoy in Bolivia. With these old jalopies, and I think there was a donkey and a cart in it and stuff. Like, it was old VW buses and stuff like that. So it was unusual for something like that to originate from Canada.
And you know what, Tamara, there's many times as we've driven back and forth to Ottawa in the last couple of years for trial, that highway is still adorned with flags.
Yes.
To this day, all the way across. And for those of you that are listening on Highway 17 in Ontario or Highway number 1, anywhere in this country, that's what we love to see. I love nothing more when I see a Canadian flag. I know our country's in turmoil right now and there's a lot going on, but I think it's centralized around one major city in this country that seems to be doing very good at dividing us the last while. And if we could just find a way to get rid of that, not the city, but the divide.
Well, and I think one thing we'll all remember, Justin Trudeau very early on in his prime ministership said that Canadians have no core identity. And I would argue the fact that we proved them wrong. The Freedom Convoy showed the Canadian identity, and that was supporting each other. All the donations that we received, the food, and I'm not talking about monetary donations. I mean, like, if we went out to the farm, there was reefers and trailers full of everything from like chapstick to tampons to earmuffs, prime rib roasts, you know what I mean? Like dog food and diapers, anything you needed. And so that to me was what our core identity is, because deep down, I think we care about each other.
Well, like you've said before, Tamara, we blew that stereotype away where the government's saying, hey, you need to hate Quebec. Quebec is against the rest of Canada. When you said it yourself, when somebody was standing on Wellington with a Quebec flag, hugging somebody from Alberta with an Alberta flag, we blew that stereotype away right there. And I knew right then and there that it wasn't the people that are divided necessarily. It's the government and the media that continue this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I remember there was an American convoy trying to get into Canada to come to Ottawa to join in with us. And they were stopped at the border and turned back to America. And I remember distinctly thinking, I hope that they can get into Canada, get into, as close as possible to us. And this was like in the first few days that they were trying to get in. We kept hearing about this great American convoy, but they were, I believe, turned away at the border. But, I remember seeing hybrid, there was a black and white hybrid Canada-US flag that somebody was waving on their truck, because I think this was when we all said, borders be damned. We're North Americans, and this does impact all of us. We're people first, right? And to see the support from the Americans and us supporting the Americans, was I think a pretty special thing. And I grew up in a border town in Niagara Falls, Ontario, and I hope my dad's not watching this, but as teenagers we would go cross border. We go over to this place called Club Exit on weekends. We were all underage drinkers drinking watered down beer and stuff like that. But, I did sporting tournaments. I played basketball in a tournament against the American high schools. We did this once a year. And it was like when you go to America and you play in a sporting event, even though you're maybe a 16, 17-year-old kid, you're thinking, where am I? Like, I feel like I'm in professional sports here. Like I'm a pro athlete. It's an incredible thing. And that's to the heart of the patriotism that Americans have. They celebrate every moment. They celebrate within their communities, their cities, and it's a special kind of unique thing, I think, to Americans. And I never experienced that until I got to Ottawa.
So
I never had that. I never had that experience like they did.
have you ever been in the States on the 4th of July?
No, no.
It is absolute, and I've done this many
Mhm.
times, trucking across the United States, traveling in the US on the 4th of July, and it is insane the amount of fireworks everywhere you look in the
Yeah.
interstates. It's unbelievable, and it's really something to see. I
Mhm.
never.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, I could only imagine what that would be like. And I study history because of the military, right? And so I understand the relationships militarily. I mean, I was trained by American, British, Canadian officers, and officers from Quebec, a lot of good friends. So, I got that perspective on how we all do that, knowing that our rich history between America, Britain, Canadian troops in wars past. And so I guess for me it was really disheartening when I saw last summer or during the last election people booing the American national
Oh,
anthem at a sporting event. I thought
What
it
about
was very unbecoming of Canadians.
what
It
I
about
was
just
never
very
thought I'd live
embarrassing.
to see the day that Canadians would do that. I mean,
Yeah.
what, what about the other night at the Blue Jays game when one of our Canadian singers butchered
Oh,
the
yeah.
anthem?
twice.
No,
Yes.
we're making it
Yeah.
up as we go. Where's the outrage against this? And I know I've seen a little bit of outrage, but that guy should be
Yeah.
embarrassed. That's not
Yeah.
But
That's
there's
not
no
Canadian.
consequences. And
no.
this is the
Mhm.
problem. I mean, they can just get up there and do that, butcher our national anthem, change the words, and do whatever they
Yeah.
want. But I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, our government is encouraging this stuff. Not,
Mhm.
I mean, our national anthem is our national anthem. And I
Mhm.
mean, we've seen people ruin their careers over the national anthem.
Mhm.
So I don't know why he would do that. I mean, think what you will about Canada. I know we all are disappointed in a lot of things, but I mean, we have to hang on to some things that are sacred,
Mhm.
and
I,
leave the anthem alone. That's what
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it was a sporting event. Let people let people relax and enjoy the sporting
Well,
event. You don't
put it
have to
this
turn
way. Put it this
everything
way.
into politics.
What do
Mhm.
you think would happen if an American stood up and sang the American anthem the wrong way or
Oh,
Mhm.
changed it to fit their purpose? What do you think would happen in that case?
Yeah, there'd
You
be
know, I
outrage
mean,
and hell to pay.
there would be hell to pay. So
Yeah, yeah. You don't
exactly.
do that. Like the national anthem of your country, your flag is not meant to be your little personal pet project where you get to weigh in on the politics because you have a privileged platform because you're a celebrity, a musician, or an actor or something like that. Like let people watch their game. Keep your politics out of it. You were hired to sing this country's song.
Yeah.
It's unifying rallying cry, not
Mhm.
to instill your politics into our national anthem by changing the words to fit your worldly view. Your
Yeah.
job was to sing the song. You had one job and you failed spectacularly in that job. And
mhm.
you should be ashamed of yourself for doing
Disappointing.
that.
Yeah.
Very disappointing. Very,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, hopefully they don't continue to carry on this way. I think we got what, 2 more games left now?
Jays are doing good. I have to say, I'm impressed. That is come on, boys, bring it home.
Bring it
Yeah.
home. Wasn't that Pierre Poilievre's
Yeah.
tagline? I kind of laughed about that. Bring it home, but that was Pierre Poilievre's
Yeah.
tagline, I think,
Yeah.
or slogan. One of
Yeah.
his many slogans for his campaign.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, well, why don't we get into it here, Chris? I think we'll start with you, if you don't mind. I mean, I know I wanted to talk a little bit about our origin stories today. I know probably a lot of people here have heard these stories numerous times, but a lot of people haven't, and I think they're all kind of curious how we all came to meet. And so, I mean, you're kind of the guy that started it all.
Well, no, I don't want to say that because that's
Well, yes,
creates a lot of
you
controversy.
weren't the guy that started it all. You were just you became the focal point of the beginning of the Freedom Convoy. with your
I would
picture.
like to say that I was the start of the truckers. I was the one that did a video on January 7th from a parking lot in Jamestown, North Dakota, being completely angry and pissed off at the direction of our government, being that guy that crossed the borders into the US all the time. And I would go into North Dakota and I would eat at restaurants and I wouldn't have to worry about a mask or a COVID vaccine passport to be able to eat at that restaurant. And I think I hit my threshold on that. But I think I hit my threshold. One of my thresholds was on October 1st, 2021. The province of Saskatchewan, after saying that they would not implement COVID vaccine mandates, implemented it. And I'd been the guy working through the COVID, through the pandemic for the previous, 2 years or something like that. And putting up with that. I mean, there was times when, as an over-the-road trucker, we weren't allowed to go into Tim Hortons or McDonald's and grab a cup of coffee. So you would have to stand in the drive-through lineup with passenger vehicles, stand there and order at the window and stand at the window and pick your food up. And I did that multiple times. Bathrooms were something that we couldn't find for a number of months. So the great outdoors was your bathroom. It was tricky. It was really tricky, but we kept going and we kept this country moving. And then when Justin Trudeau implemented the January 15th border crossing mandates for commercial drivers. Along with that, and the Arrive scam app, I hit my threshold, and I did a social media post on January 7th that went a little viral. And I think, on my end, I introduced the truckers into some of that. I had a following in the provinces here through, my trucking and what I've done in the last 32 years. So introducing that, and it kind of went from there. And then as things progressed, you realize that there was a lot of other people feeling the exact same with you, and some were a little bit more proactive. Some people were protesting the mandates for 2 years previous to that, actually getting out on foot and protesting their local legislative grounds. And that plan was already established that somebody wanted to do something, and it was just that collaboration of different people coming together. And I know that's a fight right now in social circumstances. Who started it? Who did what? I never started anything. I joined in with a whole bunch of like-minded people that had the same idea and felt the same frustration at the direction of our country and our government. And it's been a wild ride for the last couple of years, but I gotta tell you, it's one that you'll never be able to relive it. And all we can do now is tell stories about our influence, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, and it was obviously like how I came to meet you was because of that video. And I've never really considered myself to be a protester or an activist, but after Bill C-69 and Bill C-48 and the legislation that was coming down the pipe at that time, I mean, I was working in the oil patch, and I was seeing, how this was directly affecting people I knew, people I cared about, friends, families. And so I joined just a local group that was rallying every Saturday. And that's kind of what we did for a while until, that sort of proved that, nothing was still changing. And then, of course, 2020 hit, and I just started following stuff very closely. I really felt right from the start. And a lot of people told me this exact same thing. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, people were afraid, but everybody, it didn't matter if you were thought it was going to end all of humanity or believed that it didn't exist. The one thing that everybody kept saying to me was something doesn't feel right. Right. So something from their own intuition was saying something didn't feel right. And so I started, going out on my own. Obviously, after the 2016 American election, I really stopped watching a lot of mainstream media because it just proved it was all like a bunch of BS. Because I was that person that got up and watched CTV every morning with my coffee, right, and just played the loop over. It was, so I was going out to these rallies, never really, amounted to too much. COVID hit. My husband and I spent COVID in Manitoba, but it was there that I discovered Trish Wood's podcast. I started following Dr. Zev Zelenko, Dr. David Martin, Byron Bridle, and just doing my own research. And then also just talking to friends, family, things that were happening in the local community that didn't make sense as far as the mandates and all that stuff was going. And I heard some really terrible, heartbreaking stories from people. And I just got more and more frustrated. And we were fortunate to get our jobs offered back to us in Alberta. So we moved back here in November of 2021. Basically dropped all of our stuff. I mean, when I got home from jail after March or in March, like it looked like a couple of college kids were living here because we literally moved into this house a week before Christmas, had Christmas. 2 weeks later was the convoy, and the rest is history. Anyways, but I was really, trying to just find a way that I could help. And I mean, it was frustrating. Obviously, it was a really dark time. And then my good friend Cindy, of course, a lot of local areas had their own kind of private groups, right? Where they'd go meet in shops and stuff somewhere. It's hard to believe we even lived like that, but we did. When everyone would leave their cell phone at home and drive out to somebody's shop in the country somewhere. So there was groups like that locally. And I remember saying to one of the gentlemen here at this meeting one night, this is like a week before, if that, before I called you for the first time, Chris. And Cindy introduced me to this other gentleman that was on this committee, and it was his action committee. And I looked at him and I said, "You're going to want me on your action committee." And then a week later, we were starting this whole thing. But so my good friend sent me your video, and I reached out to Glenn Carrot actually, because I'd followed the United Reroll, a little bit when it had gone out in 2019. And I had just reached out to him over social media to try and find out who this Chris Barber was, and if I could track down his phone number. And I did. So the rest.
I
is
still have that
history.
book, by the way. What date was that? January 13th. This is
13th.
my note. When somebody calls me for a load, when they need something hauled, I have a notepad that I keep with me, and this book is almost full of notes. But in this book, way back in it, is the day that Tamara Leach called me, and I don't know if I could find it right now, but this still has all the police contacts that we had.
Yep.
Everything is written in this book, and I think I'm about 5 or 10 more pages to go before I have to find a new one. So it's done me well.
Nice. I have yours on. I still have my notebook with your name on it too.
Oh, nice.
And I was so excited when I found out that you were from Saskatchewan, right from the same area that I grew up to. So anyways, that first phone call, we hit it off, and I knew we were going to be really great friends. I just thought I chatted with you for a few minutes, and it seemed like you had a good head on your shoulders, like you had a great sense of humor, and that, you were just loved your country and you wanted a better life for your family. And yeah, it makes me emotional, but really, I guess that was my motivations. And I'm so grateful that, we've just got such a great family now of all the people that we've met, and a few that have weeded themselves out. So, and then, so that's basically how I got involved. About a week, I think, into the convoy, this gentleman shows up who is some army captain, comes out of nowhere. Everyone there, is saying this guy's a plant, he's a Fed, where did he come from? Anyways, and we talked fairly early on after you got there, Tom, I remember, and you were so calm. I think you came in and you weren't feeling well already. You were sick.
No, that's Chris's fault. That's Chris's fault.
Yeah.
I was feeling good until I met Chris. No, you know what? My story was, I left social media years before the convoy because I got tired of fighting with people about the same two issues: 9/11 Building 7 and vaccines. Okay, I got sick and tired of fighting with people, so I left all the social media behind. So by the time the convoy was starting to become a thing, I had quite a difficult time in those 2 years prior to the convoy going. So I was a teacher in a college, and I was teaching software, and I was doing stuff. I was a part-time teacher, and I was trying to get a full-time gig because I loved it. Like, I really felt like, man, I finally found my dream job. It's been 10 years now since I've retired from the military. And but what I knew was in the early days of the pandemic that nothing made any sense at all. Like nothing from day one. In fact, I have a really good friend of mine who, a friend Dan, he's in London, Ontario. I used to train Krav Maga with him in his club, and we stayed in touch over the years. And he had told me about 2 weeks before the first lockdown, he's like, yeah, we're going to lock down in 2 weeks. Because he, a friend of a friend of a friend kind of a situation in the RCMP in BC knew 2 weeks before the first lockdown that we were going to do it. So what did I do? I went to Costco and I bought all of your toilet paper. So you guys didn't have a chance. I had all of it. Lots of toilet paper. But I also had,
sorry.
Yeah, and so the lockdowns happened. I reverted to teaching online for the next 18 months, and I start school in September. First week of school, do the intros and everything, and then we get this email from the president of the college saying, make no mistake, if you don't get this proof of vaccine, you don't have a job anymore. And so I was like, yeah, well, I don't think so. So I do like this big long email. I do a reply all, including the president, VP, HR person, everybody I could think of. And, I basically said, you don't have, you can't even abide by informed consent. In medicine, that is sacrosanct. Like listen, a month and a half before the convoy, in the Christmas just before the convoy, I spent 10 days in Sick Kids with my son. He had myocarditis, but it wasn't anything to do with, COVID. My son was born with a congenital heart defect. He got extremely sick. And I ate my Christmas dinner that year out of a vending machine at Sick Kids, wearing a mask, doing all this stuff. He got out probably, I think, on just after New Year's. So I spent the whole holiday, in and out of Sick Kids. And then, through a bunch of different circumstances, I met these people that were loosely tied to Canada Unity. And I had moved to a new area because after I got fired from teaching, because I sent that email, which resulted in me getting fired from teaching altogether, I ended up moving to the Kingston area. And that's then I started going back and forth to Sick Kids. I spent the holidays at Sick Kids. And then right after that, I met this really great couple in the Kingston area who then introduced me to this woman named Jane Moffat. Jane Moffat was on the board of directors for Canada Unity. Mm. But when I met Jane, I had no idea. I'd never heard of Canada Unity, never heard of it. We never discussed it, nothing. She called me on the 30th of June. So you guys had arrived, I think, Friday night. Sunday morning, I'm with my daughter. We just finished having breakfast. Jane called me and said, hey, can you take a call with this guy named James Botter? I'm like, okay. And it was about the convoy. I'm like, sure, if I can help in any way, I will. So I get on the phone with James. We have a conversation. 15 minutes later, he's like, can you just come here? Because I was like not even 2.5 hours away. Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, sure. So within 15 minutes of that phone call with James, I said, yeah, I'll come and I'll help. And I thought, I'll go there, build a sustainment plan, do some spreadsheets, find some really smart people, hand the spreadsheets and say, okay, here's your plan, go, and I'm going to go home, right? I'm fine. And, I got there. And the funny thing is I kept hearing, because I didn't know who you guys were. I had no idea who anybody was. The only person I knew was James Botter, and I asked Jane if she would come to Ottawa that night. And she showed up and went home the same day. And I'm like, I don't know a single person here. Wow. And when I walked into the Ark Hotel, we were in the conference room of the Ark where I met both of you. Yeah. And I walk into a room full of people, and Bridget Belton is the loudest person in the room, and she's yelling at the Ottawa police, Fong Lee and Lou Carvello, both sergeants with the OPS. And she's yelling at them, screaming at them, basically saying, are you gonna shoot us in the streets? And a whole bunch of stuff. I was like, whoa, what's going on? Wow. But here's a funny piece of trivia. I found out when I was in Saskatchewan a week and a half ago, Sean Newman was in that room.
He
Yeah.
He
was.
told me that last.
Yep.
I had no idea he was in the room when I walked
Yeah.
in. Anyway,
The first week
so
he was there.
yeah. So I get into the meeting and I'm listening to this chaos, and of course I show up looking like a college teacher amongst a bunch of truckers, right? And they're all looking at me. But here's the funny thing: is James Botter introduced me to the room. I swear to God, like I was Allied Supreme Commander, Western Forces, Europe, World War II, General Patton, Eisenhower. And I'm like, dude, I was like a captain, right? But I rolled with it because I thought I'm not going to get a second chance to, you know. Anyway, this meeting ends and everybody's about to break up. And Rick, do you remember Rick? He goes, stop, everybody, wait, before everyone goes, and he points to me, he goes, I want to hear what that guy has to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that
Right.
I've been here, I literally went from my car to this room. I don't even know where I'm sleeping tonight. Right. So I come up with some song and dance about figuring out what's going on and everything. But I will say that night we immediately got to work, and I was trying to find out what the whole footprint of the convoy was. And I said, okay, I figured out the footprint. We didn't even have a map at the Ark. You guys had a really good setup at the Swiss, but at the Ark we had not even a map, and it was almost like a cartoon. I'm like, "Can somebody get me a map?" And one of the guys walked in with a big giant map, and I said, "Okay, let's start looking at where are the hospitals, where are the police stations, fire stations, all the vulnerable infrastructure. Let's mark that. Those are now no-go zones. Let's look at all the routes." And I said, is there any way we can open up a safety route on all of these, on every street that we're in? Can we open up one safety lane? And not a single person in that room said, no, I'm not going to do that. Everybody was like, yes, you're right. Let's do that so that we can allow all the emergency services people to get to vulnerable people.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was an emergency, they could go and save them. There was no pushback. Like no pushback at all. Everybody was like, yes, I think that's right. Because you didn't have to walk in and be an army guy and say, look, we need to be safe and responsible. Because you guys had already grown that theme for the 2 weeks prior to even your arrival when you were communicating and doing the meetings. I've seen the videos of you guys in the meetings with the police.
Yeah.
That was already the ethos of the convoy, safe and responsible. So when I showed up,
meetings with the police before we even got there.
Yes, and I've seen some of those meetings after the convoy was over. But it was just so easy. People wanted to be safe and responsible and to do this peacefully and legally. And so for me, I walked in and I thought, you know what? I don't think I have a lot here to do. I think a lot of the issues that James originally thought that I'd be able to help out with were going to just naturally resolve themselves. And after our first couple of days, I realized, yeah, they did. They actually, a lot of these things resolved themselves just organically.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to tell people to get organized and to go get fed or to get fuel. It was just happening. People knew what to do. What was challenging was getting a conversation or any dialogue with the government.
Right.
That was the impossible feat. And so then, my last bit, because I've gone on a little bit long and my earphones are telling me to shut up because the battery's going to die. I'm being self-censored by my earphones. Keith and Eva showed up with a team of lawyers. And I remember the day that you two did that first press conference. And I was at the back of the room. Randy Hillier was there, and I was standing with Jack McClellan.
Oh, we just lost him.
Was that the earbuds?
Yeah, it must have been his earbuds.
Is that better?
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I ended up, I walk over there with Jack and I see the podium and I see Keith and everybody trying to wrangle you guys all in. And I looked over at Jack McClellan and I said, you see that guy over there? You see the lawyers over there? That's my replacement. I'm going home tomorrow. Right. And then you guys got up to that podium, the two of you and Danny and Joanie. And I was so nervous. Like I was looking at you, Tamara, and I was going, holy shit, how did she pull this off? Like my stomach was in knots and I was just watching. And then, Chris, you got up, Danny did his thing, and, Keith
No, I
did the
just
intro.
I
Yeah.
was I remember saying to Tamara before that whole thing, because I've been scared endless about speaking
Yeah.
in front of groups of people and even doing an interview. I was said to Tamara, I'm like, I will be the guy that stands beside this guy, the person speaking, and I'm not going to be the guy speaking. And Tamara was gracious enough to take that role, which I'm forever thankful for. You took the heat that day, and
That
it was
was
just my chest.
crazy.
You know what? How she kept it together, and I remember because I specifically remember I said, Tamara, because we had a private conversation, and I said, Tamara, I have no idea how you pulled that off because I was nervous at the back of the room watching, and you just said to me, God.
Yeah,
It was God.
it was.
And it's a really like fascinating thing because I to this day, like I said, I was terrified and I had not stepped in front of a camera at that time. That like up until that point. I was just there as a supporting actor, kind of like being on your podcast. And watching that thing, I was like, holy crap, this is pretty monumental. This is Canadian history in the making. And I was so torn up and so nervous about it. And then, Keith and Eva started to get their sort of footing, and I thought, I'm going to stick around just a day or two more and see if I can help out a little bit more. And then finally, I was like, okay, there might be a role for me here still, but I'm going to just wait and see. I'm not going to go home. If I can help, if I can contribute, I'll continue to do so. If not, I committed to stepping out of the way and going home if I wasn't helpful. If I was a hindrance, I was going to go home. But if I was helpful, I would stay. And that's kind of how I looked at it. Like every single day was like, am I helping or hindering? And if I'm helping, I'll stay. If I'm not, I'll get out of the way.
And I think what a lot of people don't know about the inner workings of when we were involved with Convoy was there were so many different groups that were working on taking over what they could, and it was a constant fight right from day one. Here we are, inexperienced. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Tamara, you had a better idea. I just knew my place was out walking the street somewhere dealing with law enforcement and trying to alleviate some of the issues. But I think there's a big story behind the amount of people that tried to infiltrate and
take over.
Yeah.
I mean, the Marriott pressers, one thing that we'll get to talking about on another episode, but I mean, that was essentially, that's the one you were just talking about, where I felt like I was being thrown to the wolves with hopes that I was going to fall on my face and make a complete fool of myself. And I remember, like you said, Tom, I walked into that room. Well, all of us did, not me, but I had been chosen to be the one that was going to speak first. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I should be scared. I should be so nervous right now because I don't do, well, you saw my awkward videos. I'm still awkward on video. I'm not a video maker. And the only reason I started doing videos in the first place in the beginning was because, all these donations were coming in. And I was like, these people need to know that we're going to be responsible with their money, that this entire process with their money is going to be transparent and that it's their money. So they have a say. They need to be informed. So I started making these awkward videos, and then I was selected to do that. And I just remember honestly walking in there just struck by the fact that I just had this overwhelming sense of calm come over me. And that's when you asked me that, I mean, there's no other explanation than that wasn't me. That I should have been freaking out, losing my mind. You know what I mean?
There was an aura about it, right? We were protected and we were looked after right from the start, as I think we still are to this day.
Like I remember talking to Jack about it, and I was like, my stomach is turning. Like, I don't know how she's keeping her cool. I don't know how she's keeping it together because, maybe we talk about in this conversation, because I did go in front of the camera a couple of times. And I can tell you the very first time I stepped in front of a camera at the Convoy, I had no idea it was live. I thought it was recorded. And then I noticed out of the corner of my eye, there was a little cell phone on. And that's when I realized it was live, and I almost threw up.
Yeah.
onto the table in front of me. That was the very first time I did a public. I almost threw up. I could feel it. It came up, and then I just kind of choked it down. And like I to this day, I can't comprehend how you kept it together on that very first one, because I think this was the very first time that en masse, the public, the media, everybody heard from the convoy.
Yep.
We
And
hadn't
it was
allowed
like,
we hadn't we
yeah,
had only invite only media press conferences up until that point.
Except for Glenn McGregor, right? He just
yeah,
kind of burst in the door. And
Yeah.
Glenn McGregor.
Oh, man.
Uh,
Yeah,
special.
what a character. What a
Oh,
character.
was he
there were
ever
so many
good?
characters, but we've, you know, and I get this comment a lot. It was like, you have to, you know, you were one of the strongest people that I met to be able to go through the amount of abuse that you've been through in the last three and a half years and still be standing and still have humility or not have lost it. And I have witnessed so many around us lose their marbles per se and go down a dark path. And Tamara can contest to this too. It's been an ordeal to watch people that we've stood with not be able to keep their wits about them, I guess. And but I, you know what, Tamara and I, we started out our little part of this thing in January of 2022, and we still stand united to this day. You know, it was a pleasure driving back from Ottawa after sentencing, having, you know, Tamara and Dwayne with my family and stopping and having meals every night and just having that conversation, knowing full well when we got back to our homes that we, you know, let's face it, we're not going to see each other in person for 12 months.
Mhm.
That was a little tough.
It's been reversed. I feel like, I think I said this maybe last week, but I feel like everything has just been done a 180 from pre-sentencing. Because pre-sentencing, we couldn't speak. I mean, I was under a gag order for a long time. I was banned from social media for 2 years, so I couldn't. And with the trial hanging over our heads, you know, obviously we can't. We have to be mindful of some of the things that we say. But yet we could go, you know, play fundraisers for Guy Meister in Nova Scotia or Dan Hartman, or, you know, go do stuff, fundraising stuff, head to the ostrich farm, attend events. And now it's like, so I can say whatever I want, basically. I have my freedom of speech back, but now I can't leave my house. So it's kind of awkward or just ironic, like how it's just done a complete 180.
Yeah. Well, you know, I want to go back a little bit to the first time that I had met Chris in person.
Yes.
Because I got there and, you know, I was trying to get orientated. Like I was trying to figure out what was going on, who's who. And I kept hearing this name, Chris, and I kept hearing this name, Tamara. And I'm like, I have no idea who they are, but they sound important. Right. And that's all it was. It was like, okay, every time you hear Chris and Tamara, listen, because someone's going to say something I probably need to know. And I don't know which one of you I met first, but it was the same thing. It was in the Ark. It was in front of the map. We were on opposite sides of the table. I remember Chris, everyone was saying, oh, he's sick. He's not feeling good. And then Chris walks in. He's got his hoodie over and he's hugging a warm drink. And he shakes my hand, and I looked at my hand, and I'm like, I'm gonna regret that.
Yeah.
Natural,
really
Tom, you're welcome. Natural antibodies.
That's right.
Come on.
Right.
But you know, and so then you know you had like a day or two of recovery, and then I remember seeing you on Fox News, and I remember hearing it, and I was like, who the hell is that on Fox News? Like, who? Like, because I didn't see it I heard it, and I'm like, I don't know who that is. And then I look over and I saw it was you. I was like, holy shit, this guy is amazing. Like, I'm sorry, Chris. Like,
can I tell my Fox News story for everybody listening right now? I think it's kind of epic, and it's just in my world. That day driving truck, I would listen to Fox on the Sirius XM day and night, and I was a huge fan of Tucker Carlson. Like I always. Bill O'Reilly. Before that, I listened to Bill, Sean Hannity, and the phone rings, and we're somewhere. Tamara and I, Jonathan, that's in the cab. Phone rings somewhere around Sudbury, North Bay, somewhere, and it's a New York area code on my cell phone. And so I answered it, and I don't remember the name specifically, but it's like, Hi, this is Samantha with the Sean Hannity show, and Sean would like to
Right.
speak to you tonight. So I'm like,
Hmm.
holy mother of pearl, I need to phone my father because he's a huge Fox News fan too, and I'm like, I'm on Sean Newman's tonight, and like, this is amazing. And the phone rang 20 minutes later, the same area code. I answered it, and it's like, hi, Samantha with Tucker Carlson's show calling you. We'd like to have you on the show tonight. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I've ever been in the bigger dilemma right now. I'm like, I really want to do Tucker's show, but I really want to do Sean's show. And
I know. So I thought he was just going to float right out of the truck window. He was just on cloud number 9. I'm like, first world problem. Sorry, Sean Hannity. I can't do your show. I've got Tucker booked, right?
So I ended up
and
doing
it
Sean
gives us
that
two
night.
nobodies from the middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan and Alberta, right? And all of a sudden, he's on the phone with Tucker Carlson and Brad Wall and Sean Hannity. Oh my gosh, who else? There's so many.
I was lucky enough, though. I got the phone call a week later. I did Sean Hannity's show that night, and I thought, oh boy, I'm not going to be on Tucker's show. This sucks, And so I did. I got the same phone call. Only it was Tucker's crew that phoned first the next week, and I booked the show. And then Sean's crew phoned immediately after that, and so I was able to be on. I think it was on Sean's show twice and Tucker's show once. Yeah. It's been unbelievable for a prairie boy.
Yeah, but you know what, Chris? Like, the reason I highlighted it was like because I'm talking about the pressure of Tamara's press conference that you guys all did, but I gotta say, like, I was like, man, this guy he is representing this whole convoy with such clear, articulate, purpose. You represented everything that people were in that convoy to do, and I was like, man, this guy's impressive. Like, so I'm gonna say, I think as a convoy group, we were very, very fortunate that we had two people that were the spokespeople for the convoy that could go and deliver the clear message and to embody what every ordinary Canadian was there to do, and not to stammer or stumble over your words. It was clear, it made sense, it was human, it was Canadian. And so I remember thinking, man, this guy can talk. Like, this guy is representing everything, every reason that I'm here, and Tamara, you got up there and it was like, you couldn't be more cool, and so I thought the people that are representing publicly the face of this at least can express what my heart is feeling as to why I'm here and what country I want back. So I thought that was vitally important. And so then going back to you, Tamara, we met in the exact same spot in the same room, opposite sides of the table, but you came over with Thomas O'Connor.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and it was the first time we met, but you brought Thomas to meet me, and it turns out Thomas was like my counterpart to the Swiss.
Right, basically, yeah.
Yeah, and the first thing Thomas said, and he was like, if you do that, you're making a major mistake. And I was like, shit, what did I miss? What did I miss? Right? I mean, tell me. So we hashed it out, and I had a great working relationship with Thomas, and so I started every morning. I would, I think twice a day, I was going from the Arc to the Swiss. I'd have my meetings with them, and then throughout the day, or we call, text. So we were always trying to be coordinated, but between me, Thomas, Danny Bulford, the objective was always be safe and be responsible, and make sure nobody got hurt. And I want to preface this: we didn't want the police to get hurt either.
Right.
We had spent a lot of meetings talking about everybody's safety, everybody's, not just ours.
Yes.
And we pulled it off. I think we pulled it off. I honestly think, and you know why we pulled it off? Because there was no desire to not do it.
Right.
But it was all in messaging, Tom, right?
Yeah.
We messaged to anyone protesting to keep the peace and keep your head and keep it cool. No matter what they throw at you, you comply, you work with. And we noticed that even when police, officers were beating the living daylights out of protesters on our nation's capital, that people still kept their wits. They still tried to stand their line, even though most of them didn't have trucks, they didn't have horns. They were there just It's a Canadian charter right to protest. The only trouble was the government has overlooked the charter for so long and trampled on it. And that's, going back to last week's episode, having Brian Peckford with us, right? That was one of the biggest things about Ottawa for me, as well as working with the vets, to know that the last living signature of the bill or the Charter of Rights, Brian was there with us trying to defend it 40 years after.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was important. I mean, like, to be able to even get a meeting with Brian was a big honor for me, and to be in that monumental moment. And I think we talked about it last week, that monumental moment where you're sitting with one of the only person alive today in Canada that helped give us the Charter of Rights. And you're sitting in the room the first time you ever met him as your Charter of Rights and freedoms are being taken away from you. And not just me, but Brian's as well, and his wife.
Yep.
Like, the irony there, the irony. Yeah.
Like we talked about last week, that just the irony of that, the very first meeting with him, even, and the circumstances, and it's crazy that man is not being paraded around the whole country. Like I said, speaking at public schools or private schools, or speaking to universities, or I told him, if you even want to just do a speaking tour, I mean, I'd gladly organize a cross Canada tour that he could just do on his own, because I think he would get a heck of a turnout, honestly. So,
yeah, he would. And what he has to say is of vital importance.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm at a conference involving blockchain and artificial intelligence and governance and ethics and all that kind of stuff. And I told the story to a group of people today about our meeting with Brian. And, Brian, in that meeting, the pre-meeting that you and I had with Brian Tamara in Carroll, and Brian had said something to me. He said, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms would have been impossible without Christianity.
Yes.
And so I was in a conversation actually about ethics. So not to kind of get away from why we're here today,
okay.
Like to talk about our origin story, but there's an origin story about Canada that fits into this, because there's Canada's origin story. There's Canada in their self-determination, which gave us the charter. And then we see what happened 40 years later. And now we're entering into a world where it's about to change drastically again. And I'm not sure that we're all prepared for it. But what I was talking about in this conversation is we have to look to our morals as a people in order to go into the future. And I think that's really what the convoy was about. We stood up despite what Justin Trudeau said, and we declared who we were as a nation. We showed up with our morals, our ethics, our values, and our principles. And we said, this is who we are, and we've had enough, and you guys answer to us. And that's what it was all about, right? It's like taking back control of out of control, overreach government, and saying, we've had enough. We're here to put an end to your BS. But we did it safe and responsibly. We did it professionally, and we did it truthfully. We were honest. We did the best that we could. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, we exposed the amount of corruption that's now been highlighted in our federal government. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, what makes me really sick is that the two of you and a few others that have been charged and sentenced and prosecuted are the ones that are going to have to pay for that. You're enduring a collective punishment.
We have broad shoulders, right, Tamara?
Mm-hmm.
But
honestly, I think of all the people that they picked on, they probably picked the best ones, because there's not a lot of backing down. And my personality, Tamara's personality is, you want to double down, I'll double down. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's finish this. And that's our personalities. And that's why we're still standing, 3.5 years later through this. And it's been,
it's one of the reasons why we're doing this show. I mean, honestly, I don't want to make light of our situation because we do have this is a very serious situation that we found ourselves in. And I mean, I think as much as, the judge, when she sentenced us, said she was being lenient because she didn't want to deter people from the right to peaceful assembly. Well, I mean, what is 18 months as a sentence and 3.5 years of lawfare? I mean, if that's not a deterrent, I don't know what is. But so, I mean, yes, it is a very serious issue, but I think one of the things that, helps Chris and myself for sure, is just having a sense of humor about it. I mean, I'm not allowed. I'm 53 years old. I'm a grandmother. I'm usually sleeping by 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I'm not even allowed to drop my grandkids off at their school. You know what I mean? And in the meantime, like I said, we watch these criminals walking. They're out on bail. They're getting light sentences or no sentences. And so I think a lot of it is just, we have to kind of have a sense of humor about all of this too. I mean, Tucker Carlson said it best: mock them all. It's what they hate the most.
I'm here driving around the countryside working. I was actually coming through Medicine Hat, a couple days ago. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, it's breakfast time. I could stop at Truckers in Redcliffe for breakfast. And I texted Tamara and I said, hey, you up for breakfast this morning? I guess not. Turns out I kept going. I had to get delivered, but
I don't want to go spend the rest of this 18 months in Ottawa. Sorry.
And I'm allowed to eat. It says that right on my order. I said I'm allowed to stop for fuel and food in restaurants. So if you see me in a truck stop somewhere, and many people have in the last couple of weeks, I stop for my meals when it's time.
Yeah. Do you guys, we've been live for about an hour and 20 minutes. Do you guys want to maybe just take some questions or go through some of these comments in the chat?
Yeah. I love seeing where people are from, by the way. I love it. And if you see my eyes going over there, and
I saw Quebec, I saw Ontario, Alberta, well, all over actually. We've got 3,483 people watching live right now. That's pretty awesome. It's pretty bad, the bail and release program. You guys should have never been charged. Yeah, it is pretty bad. Well, you get released on bail unless you're a mischief making grandma.
In which case, town here, like awesome. Look at the town.
Yeah, Kamloops, Cape Breton. Wow, St. John's, New Brunswick. Nice. Orangeville, Ontario. Pembroke, Mexico.
Nice.
We've got a few people from Mexico, Manitoba. Oh my gosh, I had to post that Manitoba story the other day. That story will never get old. Hey, Truth. Yes.
Nice.
I met you at your first show in Calgary. Oh, yes, I remember that. I remember you, Truth.
Anybody going through the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta, give it a stop. I frequent that every time. I was actually thinking about that the other day, but it was a little far off my route. I would have ripped up and had a bite to eat at Chris's restaurant there. Unbelievable food and a must stop. If you can go out of your way, just rip off Highway 2 and over to 21 and just give it a stop. It's incredible. The burgers are to die for.
I call him and Chris and him and Adam Skelly the OGs. I mean, they were kind of like the original people that stood up against all this nonsense, right? So
I remember when I met Chris Scott, and I'm standing there. I'm at the Swiss, and I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, man, you look so familiar to me. Were you posted to CFB Kingston when I was there? Or do I know you from Petawawa or something like that? And he's like, yeah, I'm Chris Scott. I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a dumbass. Like, and like I agree. Like, Adam, Chris, the originals. Like, for me, it was like when I got to Ottawa for the convoy, and I got to meet like Danny and all these people like Chris and everyone you're talking about. I was like, this is amazing. I get to meet these amazing people that stood before I was ever even in the picture. And if I can help them, I'm going to help them, right? Because these people had balls of steel and stood their ground and led the way to make it possible for me to even be involved in the convoy to help. Like these are just like the very first people that stood up and stood out were incredible to me. Just such an inspiration.
And I remember reaching out to Chris Scott too via social media, and then got his contact information. And he was not planning on going to Ottawa, but I kind of made the point. I'm like, Chris, you were like the person that I watched the most. You have a big foot in this whole movement right now. you need to be, or if you can, be there with us. In the last minute, he pulled up stakes and he came with us. So
Yeah.
him and Jess.
Yeah.
There was a lot of
Carrie,
people that
unforgettable
ended up
Carrie.
weren't coming and then ended up coming. The greatest stories are the ones that, you know, people just hopped in their car. They thought they'd travel with us for a couple hours or maybe to the border, and they ended up like driving all the way to Ottawa with no like luggage or no supplies or anything like that.
Nicole Hunt from North Battleford,
Yes.
North Battleford. You know, had her two children, two teenage kids, well, under teenage, I guess, in the cab of a truck that she'd owned for a few weeks, and thought we'll just go to Regina. Well, maybe we'll go to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Well, this is awesome. And when I was arrested and was planning my return, I had to phone Nicole and say it's time to go. And she wanted to stay and fight. And she'll watch this video and I'll get a message, you know, afterwards. And she cried and she said, I need to stay. And I said, I don't think, you know, having two children in the cab of that truck right now with what's coming is good. And she shed a few tears and then she followed us home afterwards. And that was it. It was, you know, a solemn drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about
I
Kim
can't
Kennedy?
even imagine.
You know, Kim Kennedy, her and her daughter decided at 10 o'clock at night, hey, you want to drive to Ottawa?
Yeah.
Okay. And off they went.
Yeah.
You know, incredible stories.
Yeah.
We intend to showcase those too. Like going forward.
We will.
I want to get
got
these
so many people in the chat. Exactly. Like we're going to get some of these stories from people and have them on. And I mean,
we need a story behind that toilet that sat on Albert Street that people could throw their parking tickets in.
Right.
You remember that?
Yes.
I know all about it.
Puppies. Oh my gosh. Here, there was one. Do you remember the Freedom Puppies? I found this when I was downstairs, and it was from the people that had I won't read it all, but it says, I don't know how I ended up with it. It was just at the Swiss Hotel when I got out of jail and a whole bunch of mail there. But it says, Dear Armed Prior Support Camp and Team. Well, I'll just read it quick. We left Saskatoon on January 24th. I'll do it this way. On the convoy for freedom. We never imagined that it would have turned into the absolutely epic wild ride it has been. As we traveled down the highways and through the cities and towns, we were cheered on by thousands of flag-waving people, jumping, cheering, and crying. It was extremely overwhelming. We never expected it to be as supported as it has been. We were fed and cared for so tremendously throughout our 3,500-kilometer trip up to Ottawa that we hadn't spent a dime on food. When we rolled into Ottawa, the locals were so supportive that again was overwhelming. We had our pregnant Yorkie with us who delivered her litter of 5 pups on February the 5th in our bunk while we were parked in gridlock on Kent Street. We called these pups the convoy puppies, but all the people started calling them the freedom puppies, and they were very important to the locals representing new life. I remember that. We held the line till February the 19th when all hell broke loose, and we were the last block to leave as we had seen the riot squad coming down Kent Street. We ended up here at your camp. This is an armed prior, remember? Early evening on the 19th, and have stayed here and watched your camp grow tent by tent and witnessed the tremendous local support you have received with food and supplies of every kind. We were again so well taken care of, and we just really want to thank you for all the people. We just really want to thank you for all your supreme generosity and love. What Trudeau and Satan meant for evil, God has turned to good. The people have united so immensely from every background and are continuing to hold the line and fight for freedom. We will continue our fight from freedom from Saskatchewan at home, and we'll pray for you as you all continue to carry the torch in Ottawa. We love you all. God bless and keep you safe. Hold the line. Love and prayers. Jake and Lynette Clausen, and of course, Keely and the Freedom Puppies.
As I hear my dog Zippy barking out in the garage right now, somebody's obviously in the yard.
We'll cut this one off here. Tom, I want to thank you. I know you're busy. Really thank you for taking the time and for coming on as you sit down there in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, you know what? Thanks for doing this every week. You know, I think it's important because the one thing that I've often said is we're never going to get to healing until we get to accountability first.
Here we go.
And so I'm sitting here on a podcast live with thousands of people watching, 2 people that are suffering the accountability, right? And I think this podcast is important because maybe we can get to some of the healing, some of the discussion, talk about it. It's not about reliving the old, the glory days of the convoy. It's just about acknowledging what we all experienced and telling the story from behind the scenes, like how I felt about you guys, the things that you guys had did that I was just in awe of. And I'm like, man, I'm lucky to be here. I am very lucky. The last thing I'm going to say, Tamara, is your book, Hold the Line. Okay. You got arrested for saying hold the line, and who is it out west right now that's using the slogan, hold the line? Hold the line, Minchie, right?
Yeah.
Let's see if he gets arrested. Let's see if there's any accountability there.
Well, and it's interesting because he's basically using that as a term because he wants to overthrow the government, right? Yeah. So, I mean, here it's okay for Naheed Nenshi to say hold the line and talk about dismantling the UCP government, which is totally okay. I say it in response to somebody, literally response to somebody, and I'm under house arrest for 18 months.
Yeah. He is a very vile person.
Here. Hi, Sam. I don't know if you recognize my mug or not, Sam, but I
Sam
out of this one tonight just for you. I saw him pop up there.
You go back to the days of the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that, and some of the things that Nenshi said about people, and I can't find the video right now of him calling us all thin veiled white nationalists, and let's face it, these people shouldn't eat. The most vile and disgusting things came out of a mayor's office from Calgary, and now he's literally NDP pawn of the week, it seems like. It's pretty disgusting to see our politicians being like that, especially somebody like that. They should know better.
Any of them. I mean, Doug Ford's behavior, I can't even believe these are adults. I don't, it's just going to make me want to curse and swear and say the F word, but I mean, how embarrassing.
We don't do that here.
No. That's right. And I mean, could we just grow up and get some adults back to this table that are going to behave like adults? I mean, if it was my children calling people names and behaving in such a way, they'd get their butt spanked.
Well, let's face it, being a politician is a thankless job, from the lowest level of your governing bodies to the highest end. And a lot of times people have been so busy right now with work and raising a family and providing that we've taken that priority. And so those people that shouldn't have had those positions of power are in those positions of power because we've allowed it. So I've seen a lot of people stepping up the last number of years and becoming part of the system and changing from within. And congratulations, because that's how it's done.
And I agree. And I want to say one more thing. Andrew Lawton is a federal member of parliament. He was there with us. He witnessed it. He saw it. He experienced it. Matt Strauss, doctor, he pushed back. He spoke the truth. He's now a federal member of parliament. Aaron Gunn spoke the truth. He saw it. He's out there. Oh God, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name, but he's in Niagara West. Dean Allison. Dean Allison was a federal conservative. He's the one who got the meetings with James Topp in the Conservative Party. There are some good ones, so I don't subscribe so much to this 338 or how many ever they are now. But there are sparks, there are shining lights within in the government that are us. There are people. And they're in there, they're trying to make a difference. I'm praying and hoping that the system itself doesn't gobble them up and spit them out. But
it's our job to keep them and accountable and keep reminding them of that. And like you named one hell of a name there when you said Andrew Lawton. He is very vocal in the House of Commons, and his videos are doing quite well. And Andrew, amazing guy.
Nailing it. Yeah, he's absolutely nailing it. Yeah, Leslyn Lewis, she's doing an amazing job. I see Aaron Gunn's name on here again too. Yeah, I mean, that's right. It just takes people that want to make positive change to get involved. And you're right, Tom. It's encouraging that that's happening. I mean, we've all been preaching that for so long, but to see people actually getting involved and getting into those, and it doesn't even have to be like the member of parliament level, just sitting on a local school board or getting into municipal politics or anything like that.
So, Maggie Braun is
hearing you guys. Love hearing you guys talk about your experiences. Well, God bless you. Thank you. I
was going to say Maggie Braun is somebody who's not elected, but she's making a difference in politics.
Yes. And Maggie was with us in Ottawa. She was
Yep.
was she arrested? I think she was arrested.
Yes, she was. She had a gun
Yeah.
pointed at her head.
Yeah. And we the first time I met Maggie was at the POEC when Nervous
Me too.
Maggie testified publicly there, and
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
that's another whole story in itself, isn't it, guys? Where we can tell our experience from the
Oh
POEC.
boy, we got so many stories to tell. But,
yeah.
but I don't even know how we're going to squish this into 18 months, honestly. But
Yeah.
Honestly,
but I think
well,
we're off
we
to a great start, you guys. Gotta love your podcast. Thanks, you guys. Like I said, we're just getting started. We're just doing our best. It's going to take us a little while to get everything nice and pretty and slick, but we'll get there. And I know we sure appreciate sharing this time with you, sharing our stories with you. We hope that this show will give you a bit of an insight into who we are and why we do what we do. And also, not only that, but we got to keep you informed of what's going on with our exciting house arrest. So I've got the ditches all dug in the backyard now. I'm just going to have to get a pickaxe and start smashing boulders now.
We recently, in our little village of Stewart Valley, Saskatchewan, there's an old general store that's mounted on blocks there, and I placed a very cheap bid in on this for our local, and they wanted it destroyed and removed, and I put a cheap bid on it, and I got it. So now we're at this predicament right now. We have to move a building. It's 30 feet by 40 feet. So next week, I hope I'm done this by then. This building will be preserved in our yard. It is a building that I used to go into as a young child with my grandfather, and he used to allow me to have a treat. And you can still see in the corner of the building where the original coffee rooms used to sit. So I'm excited. Next week's going to be a busy week, but it's history, and we're kind of liking to preserve it here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hopefully Danny will be back next week. Like I said, I know he was running late from work, so he didn't get to make it today. Next week, I think on my little sheet I just had next week talking about the journey, but we'll just continue the discussion really from where we left off. And I've got some things in mind for our next set of guests, and so we'll discuss that and get that all set up for the third Thursday of next month. So. Anyways, I would just want to thanks again for coming, Tom, and thank you all for joining us tonight. I will get offline and try and get this uploaded, and we will see you all next week on House Arrest with Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.